Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Sunbury Motors, North 4th Street in Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Sports talk where your voice counts. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Great to have you with us on the show today. So how was Maddie's today?
Awesome day at Maddie's. Breaking bread with our Maddie, Matt Catrillo, and the suit. Doug with a masterful job again as our master of ceremonies.
Well, good.
Yes.
And I'm sure the suit was greeted with open arms.
He was greeted with open arms. I didn't catch anything out of the ordinary, so
good.
Yeah. Good all around. Great all around.
Well, he's got both games this week, so as the play-by-play guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a lot of work. Yeah. Now, Catrillo's there. In case suddenly out of nowhere, the primary job gets in the way.
Heaven forbid.
God, I miss Ferlazzo. Ferlazzo, I used to lock in on the job and get it done. Don't you remember those days?
I do. Just like it was yesterday.
I know. Yeah, a lot of ways it was. But I was talking today with some friends. We were talking today about the playoffs. And it was Trey Bowers, Jay, it was Todd Zolecki. And Todd, of course, in the York area. He's got a lot of. I said, how many playoffs do you have to cover? And he's like, oh yeah. He was explaining how many he has to cover on Friday night this week. And essentially, we were both saying it's thoroughly and completely ridiculous, the playoff system, and it really is. The playoff system in this state is ridiculous. I don't know what has meaning anymore. There was a time 2 years ago, Mifflin County had won 2 games all season. And they made the District 6 playoff. And we're looking at each other like, what?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I'm coaching that thing, I'd turn that down in a heartbeat. I don't want that. I don't want it. I would turn it down just out of pure pride and integrity and pure pride and dignity. I would turn it down. My team didn't earn a playoff spot. Didn't earn it.
I think that's been the big discussion around here for the last several years regarding Eastern Conference, with teams not being able to get into the districts, but if they want to continue their postseason, they can get an invitation into the Eastern Conference. But chances are you're going to be dealing with a bunch of sub-500 teams in there as well. So it's just not like the old days of the Eastern Conference and our great buddy, the Chief Dave Ritchie, bringing up the EC when he called in to join us yesterday.
Right, but I'm just saying, to me, if you're not 500, okay, show some dignity and some pride and say no. I mean, don't go.
I think it's what possibly opened up the door for Milton to get into Eastern Conference. I believe it was Montoursville turned down the invitation to be in the Eastern Conference playoffs.
Right, but see, I'm saying, you got to get some control over this thing, and you got to have some people that look around and say, you know what, we won, I don't know, pick a number, 2 games this year. Now, are you a postseason team? Really? No. Playoffs in this state are too long, take too much time, and it should only be teams. And I mentioned to them, I said, I'm lucky in my area. I said, I'm lucky in my area. I said, when I'm on WKOK, I said, they've got one that's on Friday night that is the kind of game that you really want at this time of the year. Both playing great, rivals, separated by a short distance, Sealands Grove, Shikellamy, and everybody in the room agreed with that. And Todd was telling about some of the matchups that they've got going on down in his area, and he's explaining how there's just no intrigue. There's nothing, We got to get away from the I don't want to. This is not a conservative versus a liberal thing, but I mean, honest to goodness, you got to get away from everybody deserves a trophy thing. You gotta. You win 2-3 games, you are not a postseason team. You are not a playoff team. You didn't earn it. Okay, so explain to your team. I turned it down. You didn't earn it. I mean, that's how I look at it. Now, maybe I'm wrong, and fans have a completely different viewpoint, or parents have a different viewpoint than I do. It's just I think you've got to be able to earn your spot. I mean, now you talk about college basketball tournaments under 500 teams, but again, that's a conference tournament. Okay, that's not the NCAA's. It's not the NIT. Those are not with a chance to win a postseason championship. And everybody gets in. I got that. I mean, you've got people complaining about 500 teams or sub. For example, if you're a sub 500 team, you get invited to a bowl game because they have open spots. I'm not crazy about that either, but I also think your hands are tied. I mean, you've already got the game scheduled. Now what do? Your hands are tied. This playoff thing's a different deal in high school. I just to me, you look at Shikellamy, Sealands Grove. Now that is to me a potentially special game on Friday night, right? That's a potentially special game between two red-hot teams down the stretch, playing their best football, having a rematch, head-to-head. Turns out they're separated by only a few miles, so you already have the natural rivalry to begin with, and that, to me, now that's playoff football. Like I said, I remember a couple of years ago that they needed another team in District 6. They'd won 2 games. You're like, what are you doing? I think there's got to be some point where you've got some coaches, athletic directors, and so forth that start looking around saying, no, we are not a playoff team, so we're not going to do that.
Central Mountain, who's now in the Heartland Conference and in the same league with Shikellamy and Sealands Grove, for a while they did have Mifflin County and before that Indian Valley on their schedule every single year. But then when the whole new classifications came out and then the merger happened and student population went up, then all of a sudden Central Mountain became a 5A school. That was one. Right. Yeah. Then that's one school then out of the playoff bracket. So kind of. If it turns it into an odd number out that way or not.
Look, they never should have gone to 2 extra classifications, okay? I mean, having 6 is, I was fine with 4. Okay? I was fine with 4.
Well, it's like with Williamsport. I mean, Williamsport's the only team in District 4 that's a 6A school. So they get lumped into, in their district play, then they get lumped into whoever else is in District 2. They do that combo district deal.
All right, and I just don't. I mean, again, I don't see it. They've gone to extra. I don't know why they went to extra. I don't know.
And for years and years, the team that comes out of District 4 that heads into states will take on the team that's won, and they do a District 5, 6, 9 final. That's going to be with Bellefonte and Johnstown. So they combined 3 districts just for the fact that it's so rural in that part of central to western Pennsylvania. There's just not enough Quad A schools out that way.
Right. No, and I understand that.
Me too.
And I understand that part. But they've got to be, look, to be honest with you, the weekend of December 2nd, 3rd, to me should be the weekend that they finish this thing up. It takes too long. to do. I think the only people who should be in the playoffs are people that actually won their way into the playoffs. That's just me.
Yeah, just the way the schedule's laid out now, you're talking, the district, the state playoffs head into the second week of December, and a lot of those kids, not even 24, 48 hours after they play their final game, they go right into basketball and wrestling. It's just no rest for the weary, and one sport right into another. You would think you get that going to your plan and be a little more of a recovery period at least.
Well,
in preparation into a brand new season in a different sport.
Again, I think if you're 500 or better, then you can be a playoff team. All right. If you're under 500, show some integrity and tell them, no, we're not a playoff team. We're not going. I don't care how disappointed everybody is. Okay, you should have won. I mean, to me, that's what it's reserved for. And again, I think that I wanted to give the 6 classification thing a chance just to see. I don't like it. Should have stuck with 4. Then there's other parts of this, too, that I'm not completely comfortable with. I don't like how much they charge radio stations for it. I think that's wrong. I don't like how much they charge TV stations for it. I think that's wrong. Last time I checked, high school coaches and assistant coaches aren't making any money, and the players certainly aren't either. So what's the money for?
Yeah, Kevin and I were talking about the radio and TV rights fees down the hall. What was it, late last week? Actually, it was Friday. It was last Friday night as he was heading out. I did not know the cost of the TV rights fees to air a game. I was floored as to how much that was.
What is it? $1,000 a game? I think it's 1,000.
I'm trying to think right off the top. Yeah.
I was talking to Kerry Strode today. In fact, they're thinking about they were going to televise the District 6 championship, and now they've decided not to do it. Well, is that what you want? Do you want the coverage of it, or do you want the money from it? Well, now they're going to end up with no TV coverage of it, and they're going to end up with no money either. Yeah, I think that worked out well, didn't it? I mean, seriously, they looked at each other and go, okay, what about doing it? Because in order for the TV people to do this, they need sponsorships. Well, if you're not getting the sponsorships for it, because the sponsors don't perceive it to be a big enough event to do, now you got a big problem. And that's what they were looking at, and they decided, okay, we're not going to do it. Because now if if the rights fee's cut in half, for example, or down to a proper level, which would to me be about $250. If you want to charge a radio station $100 and $250 for TV, fine. Again, I would like to know, where does the money go? I mean, where? What, to stage championships? What? Let's take a look at the overhead. Let's see now. The coaches don't get paid really any money. The students get none. The concession people are all volunteers. You do have to pay the officials. I don't even know if the chain gang gets paid. Maybe a nominal fee, $20, $30, $40, $50. Am I out of people? I mean, no offense, there's not a lot of overhead. And that's my opinion. I just,
I can't think of the TV dollar figure right off the top of my head when Kevin and I were talking about it, but I was just surprised at the wide range between what the radio fee was and to TV.
I think I talked to John today. Now, what they were asking for here now may be different there. All right, but
plus the cost may be going up. The further along you go through the state playoffs too, the fees may go up.
Right, it goes up.
Yeah,
right, it goes up. Yeah.
Yep.
And you're like, okay.
Which goes back to your original question, even more so.
Right. Now, for a TV outlet, it's a little different because PCN is the title games, right? So at that
Correct.
level,
Yes.
right. So at that level, that's not an issue. Radio fees probably go up as the rounds go. Right. Which the last I checked was actually really good for actually them. As opposed, you're letting everybody know what's happening. So I mean that those are things like that where I sit back, I have real serious questions about. And the part of it too is trying to fill spots. I mean, you're trying to fill spots, and you're filling spots with, and of course, we talk the bowl season happens with the same thing. You've got sometimes 1 to 3 under 500 teams playing in bowl games because they have spots. If you win 2, 3, 4 games in the season, I'm sorry, you haven't done enough to be in the playoffs. I mean, there was an old saying years ago on a completely different topic, just say no. All right, we'll come back with more in a moment here on News Radio 1070 WKOK, brought to you by Sunbury Motors. When it comes to car buying, there's the other guy's way, and then there's the SMC way. The other guys force you into a vehicle you really don't want. The Sunbury Motors way lets you take the time you need to browse, ask questions, and take the test drive and think on it. For over 100 years, the Mertz family and all their employees have made your experience the most pleasant one you'll ever have. The other guys won't offer you the best price for your trade, no matter how much they say they will. The SMC way is their promise to provide you with the most money the market shows your vehicle is worth. The SMC way is to offer you all applicable factory rebates on new vehicles and generous discounts. Looking for a pre-owned vehicle? The SMC way checks each vehicle in a 200-mile radius to determine the lowest price, then beat it. It's the lowest price promise, just part of the SMC way. The choice is up to you. The other guy's way or the SMC way. The SMC way wins every time. Sunbury Motors Company in the North 4th Street Auto Plaza, Sunbury, and at sunburymotors.com. Selling more cars and satisfying more customers for over 100 years. Great to have you with us on the show today as we roll through. And tomorrow, by the way, on the Penn State Coaches Show, it'll be not only James Franklin, but it's also going to be Patrick Chambers. So they'll both be on the show tomorrow. Thought we'd pass that along. By the way, Penn State did sign 2 players today, as a matter of fact. And Miles Dredd being one of them that they were able to sign. So a big plus for them. And the other one is Rasheer Bolton. Dredd, I think a lot of people have heard about, 6'4" guard out of Burtonsville, Maryland, with the Gonzaga College High School in D.C. And Rasheer Bolton is another guy from Chesterfield, Virginia, rated the top point guard in Virginia, one of the top point guards on the East Coast. Just what they needed. He'll be stepping into the program with Tony Garza Jr. So 2 guards signed today by Patrick Chambers. We'll talk about that on the show, as well as the opening weekend.
Taking your calls at 800-795-9565. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
4th Street in Sunbury, Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. And let's bring in Todd Zolecki from MLB.com. Todd, welcome. It's great to have you with us. Sorry about the circumstances.
No, how are you doing? Good to be on.
All right. Let's talk about, first of all, he was only there 4 years. I think people think of Roy Halladay, and they think that, you know what, the 16 years in the majors, half of the Blue Jays, half of the Phillies, and that's not true. It was 75% with the Jays. It feels like he spent half his career with the Phillies. What kind of impact did he have on the organization?
He had a tremendous impact in a lot of ways. You know, I think he's first of all, his work ethic. He had a tremendous work ethic. I mean, you really got to see up close and personal what it takes to be great. A lot has been written about that in the last 24 hours, but none of it is exaggerated. He was there at 7 a.m., before a night game working out. He was there at 5:30 during spring training work days and working out, and he spent a lot of time preparing on the mental side of the game. He spent a lot of time preparing just how to attack hitters, knowing their strengths and weaknesses. So in that sense, anybody that kind of came in contact with him knew and figured out quickly that, okay, I understand why this guy's great because he really, really works hard at it. And in terms of the rest of his impact, I think he just kind of symbolizes that great era in Phillies history in the sense of he was a really big piece to come join the team late in their run, and in 2010, 2011, they were like the dominant team in Major League Baseball, and they got it really stepped up and lived up to the hype. How many times in Philly have we seen free agents come in and Phillies or other, Eagles, Sixers, Flyers, or whatever, and kind of fail to live up to the hype. But he not only lived up to it, he exceeded the hype, and throwing a perfect game and a no-hitter, postseason no-hitter. I mean, he was everything he was supposed to be, and so much more.
Well, in fact, what I do is I liken him to when the Red Sox acquired Pedro Martinez from Montreal. Suddenly, you have hopes, and Roy Halladay and Pedro Martinez did exactly what everyone hoped they would do when they were acquired. That's why I've always compared the two of them that way.
Oh yeah, that's very true. Very good comparison. When they got Roy, of course they had they traded Cliff Lee basically the same day to kind of restock the farm system, but people were so excited to get him, and he really did kind of elevate the team, in my opinion. I mean, he was a workhorse ace in an era now where pitchers really don't do that so much anymore. And I know I'm going to screw up the stat, but I read something this morning. It was something like he had, say, 67 complete games in his career, and there are teams that don't have. There's like 5 or 6 teams that, if you combine them all, don't have 67 complete games this decade. Or it's like there's some crazy stat like that just shows how deep into games he pitched, and to me that says a lot about him in an era where that doesn't happen anymore. A guy that can take the ball, and every time he went out there, you thought he was going to go 7, 8, 9 innings and just throw a ton of strikes, don't walk anybody, and just win baseball games. And he had a tremendous presence in that clubhouse, and I remember that first spring training. I was telling this to somebody earlier today. I remember, because I started covering the Phillies in 2003, so in a sense I kind of came up with Jimmy Rollins, Chase Utley, Ryan Howard, Cole Hamels. We weren't peers, but you know what I mean. We came up at the same time, so I didn't really look at them as like these guys larger than life. But when Roy Halladay joined the team in 2010, I was like, that first spring training, I was like, holy cow, Roy Halladay is in the Phillies clubhouse. This is pretty unbelievable. And that feeling never really went away. You'd see him kind of walk through the clubhouse. He always had a purpose with wherever he was going. He was always doing something. There was no sitting on, fooling around on his phone, hours before the game. Like, he was always doing something. He was just a tremendous guy to be around, and just to see, like I said earlier, you really got to see what kind of made him great and why he was great.
Last time Penn State played in the Outback Bowl, they trained over at the Phillies complex. They went over who was the one Philly that was working out. Oh, and by the way, took a lot of time out to talk to the coaching staff and the players. Roy Halladay. They all were impressed by him. All of them.
Yeah, and there's so many stories like that. He was working. He was kind of working in an unofficial part-time role with the Phillies on the mental skills side of the game. He had an office at the Carpenter Complex in Clearwater. He would show up. I don't want to say every day during the work week, but he would show up at least a few times a week, stay there for about 4 or 5 hours, and work with some of the team's young players on the mental skills side of the game. And he was going back to school to get certified. He was planning on making this his career after his kids kind of got out of high school and kind of moved out of the house, and really that was his passion. And so he has there's a lot of people that he made a point to talk to young people whenever he could and try to, make them better. I remember a few years ago when he was still with the Phillies had this pre-spring training pitching camp with a lot of the young pitchers, and Roy showed up because he lived right down the road, and he bought everybody a copy of Harvey Dorfman's the mental ABCs of pitching. That's just the type of guy he was. When he threw his perfect game in May of 2010, he bought 60 very, very expensive, very nice watches, not only for his teammates, but training staff, PR staff, bat boys, clubhouse staff, and they were all personally engraved. And that, again, that was just some of the stuff that Roy Halladay liked to do for people.
Amazing. Now, it wasn't as if he was a bad interview. He was a reluctant interview along the way, but when he did talk, people listened. Would that be a fair commentary on a guy I don't know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he was kind of like a reluctant superstar. He didn't, if we're being honest, he didn't particularly enjoy talking to the media, but that's okay. Chase Utley didn't enjoy talking to the media either. They just really loved the competition. To them, it was all about the competition, and they could just do without it. But Roy, so like from my experience as a Phillies beat writer, it was really, really tough to get Roy for an interview on days that he was not pitching, because he was always working out. He just didn't have time. He'd kind of look at you like, what do you need? He just had other things he would rather be doing. He was trying to get better for that next start. But then after he pitched, he was very good talking to reporters. He gave a lot of insight into his pitching. He gave a lot of insight into his thought process, attacking hitters. If he struggled, if he was successful. He was a very interesting guy to talk to. So you're right in that regard. When he talked, people did listen, and I always thought that when he did talk, he could be very, very engaging.
Todd, what did he mean to the younger pitchers on the staff?
He meant a ton. Like Kyle Kendrick is an example of that. Like, he really kind of idolized Roy, and tried to pick up as much as he could from him. Like that first spring training in 2010, like Roy got there super early, so Kyle would try to get there super early. He would try to mimic Roy's workouts, and found it was really hard to do. And a lot of young pitchers kind of felt the same way. But I think he definitely led by example. And clearly you have to have a lot of talent to even approach anywhere near the ballpark of success that Roy Halladay had. But at least he showed these young pitchers, if you want to be good, you really got to try to be good. You can't go halfway in terms of your effort. And so I think in that regard, he left a lot of guys with a lot of very, very positive impressions. And I'm sure even guys that didn't pan out in the big leagues, say they go out and coach their kids' little league team or high school team, down the road, they're going to be using a lot of, there's going to be a lot of, hey, I played with Roy Halladay and this is what he did, so this is what you kids should do. Like his message, his work ethic, his manner of doing things is going to be kind of passed down to the next generation. There's no doubt about it.
Then there's the end of his career. Then he was taking the ball, at least in my opinion, on days he probably shouldn't take it, but because he is such a gamer and he knew they needed him to take the ball, he did. Was that fair in terms of that assessment?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the way Roy looked at it is, I'm being paid a ton of money to throw a baseball, so I'm going to throw a baseball, and I'm going to try to get back on the mound, and I'm try to work through these injuries. And yeah, he really felt the responsibility, and without naming names, there are some pitchers out there that when they got hurt, they're like, I got my guaranteed deal, I'm just going to pack up and go home and whatever. Roy was not like that. He legitimately felt guilty about the fact that he was hurt and did not perform. In fact, I remember him saying as much at the end of his career. He just felt really guilty about it, and he would text people and say, I'm sorry, I apologize that things aren't going well right now, or I'm sorry I didn't pitch well today. And they're like, dude, without you, we wouldn't have been so good in 2010, 2011. So I don't know what you're apologizing for, but he really, it really meant a lot to him. I know, and then some people are going to say, well, of course he should have tried harder. He was making $20 million, but human beings are human beings, and like I said, there are a lot of human beings making $10, $15, $20 million that would have gotten hurt and said, whatever, I'm okay with it. Roy
Todd,
never looked at it
you
that
and
way.
I both know. You and I both know there are guys, what I call the twinge guys. Oh, I feel a twinge. I don't think I can go today.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd rather have a guy that says, give me the ball, I'm going.
Right. And that's another reason why people really respected him so much, those young pitchers and just teammates, and why by all accounts, people that offered statements yesterday and people that didn't offer statements yesterday. I heard from some people their reactions, and people were really broken up about this. I mean, this is no joke of just hey, let's just everybody kind of say what a great guy he was. I mean, he really was a great guy that really touched a lot of people in a tremendous way.
And in particular, his wife and his two sons.
Yeah, I just feel so bad. I feel so bad for all three of them, and he really did. He really loved kind of having the opportunity to kind of be a dad. After baseball took so much out of him that he missed so much time because of his baseball career. He really did look forward to, and he really did enjoy that. Being a dad and coaching his sons' baseball teams and spending time with them, going on vacations with them, and I remember we talked to him in spring training about, he was like, oh my gosh, my son's team, we won the state championship, and da-da-da. I mean, he kind of lit up talking about his kids, like, Roy, what about your Hall of Fame chances? Well, that'd be great if I could get in the Hall of Fame one day, but then, well, how are your kids doing? Oh man, let me tell you about my kids. I mean, he really loved it, and that to me is just the saddest part of this, is that these two kids aren't going to, they were kind of, they were just kind of getting. They only had a few years really of having a full-time dad, and now they don't get that opportunity anymore.
Todd, an absolute pleasure during a tough time. Always appreciate the time, the insight, and so does the audience.
No problem. Anytime. Thanks a lot.
Todd Zolecki from MLB.com. Great to have him on the show. Coming up in the next half hour, Jerry Krasnick of ESPN.com will get his thoughts as well on the untimely passing of Roy Halladay, and we'll hear from Jerry Krasnick of ESPN.com in the next half hour. Greg Pickle, final half hour, and again, we'll also have a special segment, Musings from the Suit. That's in the after show.
Oh, cool. Yep. Working on that.
Yeah. Feel free not to stay for it.
Oh, cool. I can go home? Nice. Thanks.
No, just, really, feel free to, no, go ahead. You start. We'll call the after show segment Ramblings from the Suit. My primary job. Okay, everybody leave. All right, we'll come back with more in a moment here on News Radio 1070 WKOK. When something tragic happens, the hard part is, of course, you're trying to line up people to come on and talk about it. Because, look, let's face it, it's not the easiest topic to discuss along the way when it's so sudden like that. And our thanks to Todd Zolecki, who jumped in right away and said, yeah, I'll do that. And then Jerry Krasnick from ESPN.com says, yeah, I'll come on and I'll do that. So, and then we'll close out and go back to football with Greg Pickle coming up in the final half hour. We'll talk a little bit about recruiting and about Penn State football with the Rutgers game, the homecoming game coming up this week at Beaver Stadium. It's a noon kick, 10:30 airtime. We do not know the kick for the Nebraska game. We'll find out either late Saturday or early Sunday. Probably late Saturday. They put it on another one of those 6-day window things, which I haven't even looked at the schedule for that weekend, but I think if I looked at the schedule that weekend, I could probably give you a pretty good guess as to where the games all should end up. That's why I never understand this. I never understand why you need a 6-day window to sit back and look and say, you know what, like take this week. I think Georgia-Auburn's a big game. What do you think? That's a big game. Notre Dame, Miami. Yeah, that's a big game. Michigan State, Ohio State. Yeah, that's a big game. I mean, what does it take to do that? Evidently, it takes more than we realize. I can't stand the 6-day thing. I can't.
I've heard more and more people this year be really ticked off about that.
I mean, again, it has no effect on me at all. Zero.
Oh, you've said that for years, yeah.
I mean, zero. In other words, they tell me the airtime, the game kicks at noon, we're on at 10:30. Kicks at 3:30, we're on at 2.
It's like us here, just like they tell us what time and we'll air it.
Right.
It's simple.
Right. Yeah. Simple. It has nothing to do with me. Zero. Because I'm working, and so it's just telling me what time I'm going to show up for work.
By the way, since we're talking about air times and broadcasts, we can share this. We will for the rest of the way. And this includes basketball season as well. Anything with Learfield, you will be able to listen to it on our stream at WKOK.com or on our WKOK app. So if you're out and about, not near the radio on Saturday for the game, or for tomorrow night for the Coaches Show or all the basketball games, now available on WKOK.com. Just want to get that out there quick.
Great.
Yep.
You see, and my part's about the fans. I mean, these people are already paying good money to be there. They're critical to the ambiance that you see on TV. They're critical to the atmosphere of any game. They're critical to the athletic department, everything. Now, the athletic department has zero to do with this. Well, I'm sorry, TV can't run it to the point where, part of it has to be is that we're having an event, we're happy to have you there. It can't be I'm running the event. I'm talking about TV. 12 days, okay, that's fine. It gives everybody plenty of time to sit there and put some plans together instead of, I don't know, I have to guess. Do I need a hotel room? Do I not need a hotel room? What time are we going to leave? What plans do we have? It's the fan in the stands, which means so much to me. I mean, really, the fan means so much to me. Always has. Because you look around when you're sitting in that seat every game, you look around and say, these games wouldn't be as exciting without these people here. They're the atmosphere, they're the juice, they're the ambiance, they're the passion in the place. The players can be passionate all they want. That passion is taken up exponentially when the crowd is there with them. And, and TV acts as if the fan base in stadiums is disposable. Yet they need fans in the stands as badly as anybody else. They need the ambiance come through the set. It makes it more exciting. It's a 6-day thing bothers me. I just don't think there are a lot of really, I'll bet any amount that there's no decision that is made Saturday night that would not have been the same if they announced it on Monday. I'd be willing to, without ever being in the room, I'd be willing to wager that.
That doesn't matter if Penn State lost the last 2 games or won the last 2 games. That wouldn't make a difference.
Right. To me, it would not make any difference at all if they announced it on Monday and gave the fan paying good money to travel, good money to park, good money to eat, good money for tickets, good money in donations. Right? Again, the school has zero to do with it. It's all television. And you can't keep, even the NFL, when the NFL flexes a game, they do it a month out. The college football, I was hoping in the new TV contract that the Big Ten would have the guts to look at the TV networks and say, with us, no 6-day window. None. Treat our fans with respect. And they didn't do that.